Live from Los Angeles. Welcome back to Good Morning LaLaLand. We are so excited to be honoring #Friday Feels today. We have Dr. Michael and Barbara Grossman in the house. Thank you so much for being here today.
Look, you guys match. You're such a beautiful, handsome couple.
Well, I mean, they've created the marriage map, Aaron.
Wow, we want to hear about that.
Absolutely. Co-authored The Road to Transforming Your Marriage from Ordeal to an Adventure, right?
I've been an ordeal for sure before. That's no fun at all.
I think most people's relationship, or at least most people's lives at some point, feels like an ordeal, right? The relationship life. Right. So can you talk to us a little bit about your journey?
Well, we want everyone to know that there's inevitable disconnections between a man and a woman in a relationship. We want them to understand what they are so they don't misunderstand it and they don't decide that the relationship needs to end because they're not on the same page. And that if they have the skills, they can work through the disconnections and get back in line. But men don't develop the same way women do. We have different chapters at different times. And so we're going to get out of phase and we won't, understand each other at every point. But we can learn to understand each other if we have skills. That's what we teach. We teach couple skills.
That's beautiful. So important. You guys both have training in religion. You have your master's in religion, which is so fascinating because I think it completely translate to relationships for sure. All of life is a relationship. And then you deal with aging. So how did you guys come together to go, let's deal with relationships?
Well, we've been married 46 years, but it's as if we've had 3 different marriages.
Oh, really?
Our first marriage, we were 20, and we had 10 years of doing whatever I thought was right. And that was a great marriage. And I loved it.
Did it your way.
And then she was back in graduate school, and they taught her to think for herself, have her own opinions, her own way of doing things, and that was really, really difficult. We almost divorced. That was 4 years of intense problems. And we did a lot of counseling, which didn't help very much, and we did a lot of classes and courses and personal growth development, which was really profound. And then we came out of that, and we have a different kind of relationship now, and we teach that. We teach people how to move out of that phase where you're just arguing and getting upset into the phase where you really can support each other to heal each other's wounds from childhood, and that's the great purpose of relationship.
It's funny because I was just even looking at the origin of sex. And I was like, where is that origin from? And you think about X is in there, and you think about X means something has grown out of there. It's like there is something to be birthed, whether it be a child, whether it be the new you, whether it be whatever it is. Like, what do you guys, how do you teach that? How do you teach for someone to break through the ordeal?
So, life will teach you that. What you need is the skills to be able to move while all that's going on. So, if you do ballroom dancing, which Barbara and I love doing, it looks like, oh, it's effortless. Look how they're just floating through the dance floor. It's the exact opposite of effortless. It's the most effortful thing you do. Every movement has to be coordinated with each other. You have to be communicating with each other. You have to kind of go over things. And that's what you have to do in a relationship. And teach that. How do you communicate with each other in such a way where you can see that you're so different than me? My God, how do you see the world that way? That is crazy. But you come to appreciate how different people see the world, and your spouse is very different than you, and your lover is very different than you. And if you appreciate that, that's what allows you to grow, because it stretches you. So you don't have to do anything. Life does the stretching.
I agree. If people just look at relationships like this is a classroom, who am I going to tango dance or ballroom dance with that's going to grow me and that's going to help me and be committed to healing my maybe childhood wounds, but also is going to stretch me to have me understand something completely different than me. It's so beautiful, you guys, so beautiful.
To be the light that shows you your...
So what skills would you say are most critical for people to understand or learn?
Well, you need to learn how to have create positive cycles, how to create positive energy. You need to know how to change your complaints into requests. You need to learn how to listen and listen deeply.
And when you listen, if you're planning in your mind what you want to say back, to argue back, you're not really listening. If you're not listening without interrupting, without planning your own response, you're not really listening. Then you're just sort of trying to win the argument. That's not listening.
And we need to learn how to stop anger on a dime and redirect and understand what's underneath that and what we really want.
So how do you do that? Especially, you know, if there's miscommunications in the relationship and it's a fight and you're passionate and you're arguing, how do you remove anger from the situation?
Well, you might need to take a time out, and then we have a structured talking. We teach our couples how to listen to each other in a very, predictable, a structured way that has rules. And then we have our couples think about the conversations before they come back to the same topic.
And so the rules are no interrupting. One person talks for 5 minutes and you don't say anything for those 5 minutes. You have no facial expression, just really, really listen. And then the other person does their 5 minutes. And then you don't talk about it.
And that's on the outside and on the inside.
That's right. But it takes time to learn that, but that's one of the skills. We practice it and people get it. Transforms a relationship.
I mean, and you've transformed over 1,000 relationships. What have you learned through that journey about yourselves in the process?
Well, when you read the book, you'll see all the stories that I have and my wife has in there. And so half the book is my stories of transforming from being an egotistical man who knows everything and I'm always right, into someone who's a little more humble. And you see that transformation. And men have to learn that transformation. And women have another transformation they have to learn. They have to learn when they have an emotion not to act on it like it's the end of the world. They have to
come on!
That's impossible! So they have to learn that because a man's brain and a woman's brain are structured in a different way. A man's brain is one part. It has a focus, and the man's brain and the right and left are not so connected. And so men use different parts of the brain one at a time. It's not all connected. A woman's brain is all connected all the time, and it's constantly moving. It's a different physiological structure, hormonal structure. And so women have to learn their things, men have to learn other things, and eventually you grow each other.
Right. So I have a question for you, because you teach the skill set, but can you teach somebody the desire? Meaning that if people are having a hard time or whatever, there has to be a desire. There has to be some commitment. Can you teach that, or is that something that just people have or don't have?
Well, that's a great question.
Well, I don't know that we can teach the desire, but people have an investment in each other. And when we actually teach the way life unfolds over time, we have a developmental model that shows how women and men develop over a lifetime and what's possible. And we can tap into people's desire for a fully evolved personality and a fully evolved life. And my belief is if you've loved someone and you've had children with someone, there is a connection there. It could be buried, but if you understand that where you're stuck is only because you're in a tough place, and that there's possibilities beyond this place, and you begin to learn skills that opens up the trapped place you feel, it can open up and redirect love and recreate love. I can't guarantee it.
Yeah, because I mean, today's world, the reality is that the younger generations are not getting married as much, or they're getting married much older. What do you feel about that? What do you feel about marriage being on the decline?
Well, I think in some ways the millennial generation has lost trust in a relationship. They've seen too many divorces. And I feel that way too. It's tragic for this society. It's tragic for our children. If you lose trust in relationships, you lose trust in life, why would you want to play that game? Which is why I'm deeply purposed in teaching people how to recreate their relationships and make it magnificent, lifelong. That's what our society needs. Our society also needs how to talk to each other. We have forgotten how. It's no different from talking to a woman. If we can't have differences and hold differences, how do we expect to speak as a society and talk about our social problems?
You know, it's interesting as a single woman dating. I've encountered many conversations with men and posing the question, well, what is it that you want? What do you see in your future? And a lot of them are saying that they don't want to get married. Oh, I'd like, a commitment and a partnership and a long-term relationship, but I'm not going to marry you. And for me, that's very important to me. And I thought, oh, maybe I can change their mind. If I just love them enough and communicate enough, I will change their mind in that.
I wouldn't invest in that stock, no.
So Barbara, in her counseling, talks a lot with women just in your situation, and she has a formula that she recommends.
Well, there are men who want a lifetime love, and you want to find men. And if a man tells you he's not interested in marriage, I would believe him, and I would move on.
Right. And
okay.
Barbara always said, you want to date at least 3 people.
At all times, simultaneously.
And if you find one who is committed to having a long-term relationship and or marriage, and that's what you want, then you may commit to that person. But when they say they're not committed, then that's fine. I'm dating other people. You never commit unless you have someone who's interested in that. Otherwise, you're wasting time, and she has all the time. Women.
Yeah.
3 men at a time.
Well,
That's right.
That's easy. Come on.
you know what I find is that women form relationships, and that's not what dating is. Dating is interviewing. Dating is pre-qualifying a man and to see if he's available and eligible for a relationship with you. It means finding if you're mentally attuned, if you emotionally have affinity, and if you have chemistry.
And so how long can you date? Decide that relationship. So I'm a serial relationship kind of girl. And so now being in this dating world is very new and interesting, especially as an adult. So even the idea of entertaining, 3 different potential partners at a time seems, one, exciting, but a little overwhelming. But how long do I let that go on?
If you have 3 people, you drop one out and add another one when someone doesn't seem so interesting. And then when you find that this guy is the right guy, he has my interests, he wants to have a family, he wants to have kids, he wants to live in LA, he's the right religion, he's this and he's that, then you can commit.
Wow.
You're not married yet, but you're committed, you have a year, but you don't want to be with a guy for 6 years and hope someday he's going to change. That is like bad news.
I have a question, and I love this. I love this conversation. How great a role does introspection play? Because the one experience that I've seen, I've experienced myself, and also with friends and clients, is that lots of folks aren't very clear about what they genuinely want for themselves, or who they genuinely are at the deepest core. And so they go out into the world and they go out into the dating situation, and they're looking for people that meet a checklist of criteria that they never thought their way through, but that was them, or they inherited from previous generations, or from a teacher, or from their parents, or from whoever. So what role does introspection play, in sort of getting you to a place where you're even ready to begin vetting for, qualified candidates?
Well, you do have to know yourself, and if you're having serious conversations with people, that's a chance to sort yourself out. You learn about yourself when you're talking, and so you wanna find connection on lots of levels. I think my philosophy about dating comes from meeting lots of women in their late 30s who don't have that special partner and who want families, and they're up against a biological clock that's merciless. And so this comes from being, really pragmatic. And if you have those conversations instead of just bonding and being sexual, you will learn about yourself.
But just to play devil's advocate for a minute, I mean, look, I'm all where people are really drawn to the concept of marriage. I'm all for it, and I think it's beautiful to be committed and to have that space to grow in ways that you never knew because of the commitment. But I also feel like in today's world, marriage may be a little unrealistic for a lot of people. And I just feel as if so many people, and I was one of those people, that think marriage is going to solve and complete them. And I just feel like for a lot of people, I feel like for them to even just be happy with themselves is maybe a feat in of itself in this lifetime.
For sure.
Like, it's not necessarily for everyone. How do you feel about that? If you feel there's certain people that you work with,
fine. If you're not interested in a lifetime relationship, that's fine. It's your choice. But a lot of people want that and don't admit that to themselves and allow themselves to be pulled into short-term relationships.
But how do you know that you want to be married when you haven't even met somebody you would want to marry? That seems bizarre to me.
It depends on how old you are. Okay, so if you're in your 20s. You're just exploring yourself, and it's natural that you want to be connected. We call this the caretaking stage of life. So you come out of teenage stage where you're independent, you want to be on your own, do everything your way, and then you want to be connected. And that's a natural phenomenon, whether you're married or not married. You feel that desire to be connected. You get it until you're a little bit older. You get into your 30s, maybe your early 40s. You don't want so much connection. You want your career, you want your hobbies, you want the things you're passionate about. And yes, you're in love, but give me a little space. That's natural. We call it the warrior stage. And then we have the stage that you get into when you're older, in your 50s, 60s, where you once again feel connected. You want to be connected back to your grandchildren, or you feel more intensely desiring. That's a natural, that's going to happen whether you're married or not married. Those are stages. Don't argue about it. Don't fight about it. That's just a phenomenon of life, and it's okay. Right. So whether you get married or not is a separate thing.
Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time, and I could, like, honestly, like, this is such an important conversation.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, the only, like, kind of, like, thing that doesn't, like, completely suit me is, how do people know they want to be married when they haven't met the person they'd want to be married to? Like, that for me that's the bizarre thing about our culture and marriage. That's the only thing that I go, I think it's natural to want to spend your life with someone forever, but how do you know you want to be married?
So maybe you don't know, and so if you don't know, you're not going to be interested, so this conversation isn't for you. But in truth, wisdom and maturity comes from taking responsibility, and most of us enjoy taking responsibility and creating love. And so it's part of part of growing up, and I believe in growing up. I think there's creativity and fulfillment in that.
I know certainly that that's something I want in my life, and I might not know that person, but I know I want that relationship and I want that partnership very deeply. So thank you very much for being here, for giving us a roadmap. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more on Good Morning LaLaLand.